The conference room smelled like old leather and expensive coffee I wouldn't drink. I sat across from Adrian Wells, my father's lawyer for 20 years, watching him adjust papers that didn't need adjusting. Lucinda, my stepmother, perched beside Owen, my half-brother, both wearing black that looked freshly purchased. Adrian cleared his throat 3 times before speaking. Samuel's wishes were clear on most matters, he began, eyes on the document. The estate, valued at approximately $2.3 million, has been divided as follows. He read through property distributions, investment accounts, the family business. Lucinda received the house. Owen got the commercial properties and Dad's vintage car collection. Distant cousins I'd met twice received small bequests. My name never came. And Maribel? I finally asked, my voice smaller than I wanted. Adrian's pause lasted 3 seconds too long. There appears to have been an oversight. Your name isn't listed in the primary distribution. Oversight. The word landed like a slap. Lucinda gasped, her hand flying to her chest. Owen stared at his phone. Neither looked surprised. These things happen, Adrian continued quickly. Estate documents can be complex. I'm sure we can resolve this administratively. Lucinda slid a manila folder across the table toward me. Her smile tight and practiced. To simplify everything, Lucinda said, tapping the folder with one manicured nail. We've prepared a waiver. Just standard paperwork confirming you understand the distribution and won't contest it. I opened the folder. The document was already filled out, dated, waiting only for my signature. You had this ready? Yes. Adrian suggested it might be helpful, she said smoothly. Given the circumstances. No point dragging things out with legal complications. Owen finally looked up from his phone. Mom's being generous, actually. Most people wouldn't even offer closure like this. Generous. As if erasing me from my father's will was a favor they were doing me. I read the waiver carefully. By signing, I would acknowledge the will as legitimate, waive all rights to contest, and release any claims to the estate. Forever. This wasn't a mistake, I said quietly. You knew I wasn't in there. Maribel, don't be dramatic, Lucinda sighed. Your father made his choices. He was under no obligation. He was my father. And he provided for you while he was alive, she cut in. College, that car, your apartment deposit. He did his part. The room felt smaller suddenly. Suffocating. I stood up, leaving the unsigned waiver on the table. I need time to think. Lucinda's smile vanished. There's nothing to think about. The shift happened so fast I almost missed it. Lucinda's voice took on that certain tone, the one she used at family dinners when rewriting history. Maribel was never really around, she said, addressing Adrian but speaking loud enough for the cousins in the corner to hear. After Samuel married me, she pulled away. Missed holidays, barely called. That's not true, I said. Thanksgiving 2 years ago. You didn't come. I had pneumonia. I was in the hospital. Christmas last year. Dad was already sick. I stayed with him for 3 weeks straight. But Lucinda had already moved on, building her narrative brick by brick. Samuel tried so hard to include her. But you can't force someone to be family. Eventually, he had to accept that she'd made her choice. The cousins nodded slowly, their faces shifting from confusion to understanding. Owen contributed a sad shake of his head. I looked at Adrian, waiting for him to correct this, to say something. He studied his papers like they held secrets. She probably expected more, Owen added quietly. But Dad was clear about wanting to provide for the people who were actually there for him. My father's memory was being rewritten in real time, and I was watching it happen. Lucinda gathered her things. We'll give you 3 days to sign, Maribel. After that, things get complicated. I made it to my car before the tears came. Sitting in the parking garage, I let myself fall apart where no one could see. My phone lit up with messages. Owen's girlfriend offering condolences that felt automated. Aunt Beatrice asking if everything was settled now. Nobody asking if I was okay. I drove home on autopilot, my mind replaying every moment I'd spent with Dad in his final year. The hospital visits when he couldn't keep food down. Reading to him when his eyes got too tired. Holding his hand through chemo sessions while Lucinda attended charity luncheons and Owen closed business deals. "You're so strong, Butterfly," Dad had whispered one afternoon, using my childhood nickname. "Stronger than you know." I'd thought he meant surviving his illness. Now I wondered if he'd meant surviving what came after. At home I sat in the dark staring at photos on my phone. Dad teaching me to ride a bike. Dad at my college graduation. Dad 2 months before he died. Thin but smiling, holding my hand. He'd loved me. I knew he had. So why would he erase me? My phone buzzed. Voicemail from Lucinda. I almost deleted it. Instead I listened. "Maribel, it's Lucinda. I hope you're feeling calmer now. I want you to know there are no hard feelings on our end. Your father would want us to handle this gracefully." Her voice was honey smooth, reasonable. "I've spoken with Adrian, and we'd like to offer you something. A gesture of goodwill. $25,000, free and clear. No strings, no complications. Just a gift from the family to help you move forward. $25,000. From a $2.3 million estate. All we need is for you to sign the waiver by Friday. Simple, clean, everybody moves on. No need for lawyers or ugly court battles that would only hurt everyone. Your father wouldn't have wanted that." The message ended with another reminder to do the right thing. I sat there holding my phone, feeling the weight of that offer. $25,000 might change my month. Signing that waiver would change my life. Dad had left me nothing, but Lucinda was offering pennies to make sure I stayed quiet about it. I deleted the voicemail. Then I took a screenshot of it first, saving the timestamp and transcript. Something in me shifted. If this was a mistake, why did they need my silence so badly? I spent 3 months doing nothing. No lawyers, no confrontations, no desperate calls to Adrian's office. I went to work, came home, lived my life quietly. Let them think I'd accepted it. On social media, Owen posted photos of renovations to the house. New kitchen, expanded deck, professional landscaping. Lucinda shared pictures from a cruise to the Mediterranean. They were spending Dad's money freely, visibly, without guilt. I watched it all from a distance, saying nothing. At Dad's favorite coffee shop one morning, the owner asked about the estate. "All settled," I said with a smile. Good, good. Your father would have wanted that. He talked about you constantly, you know. So proud." I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. Weeks passed, then months. My phone stayed quiet. Lucinda probably thought she'd won. Then one Tuesday evening in September my phone rang. Unknown number, local area code. I almost didn't answer. "Hello. Is this Maribel Cunningham?" "Yes. This is Adrian Wells. I need to speak with you. Privately. As soon as possible." His voice sounded different. Trained. "I thought we had nothing to discuss." "That's what I was told to believe," he said quietly. "But I was wrong. We met at a diner 40 minutes outside town, far from anyone who might recognize us. Adrian looked older than I remembered, tired in a way that went beyond lack of sleep. He ordered coffee he didn't drink. "I was instructed to call you last," he said finally. "After everything was distributed, after the deadline for contesting had nearly passed. I was told you'd been difficult, that you'd refused to engage with the process. That's not true. I know that now." He pulled out a folder, hands shaking slightly. "I've been reviewing Samuel's files. There are inconsistencies. Documents that don't match the timeline. Drafts that disappeared." My heart started pounding. What kind of inconsistencies? "The will I read in June. It's dated March 14th. But I have notes from a meeting with your father on March 28th. He wanted to make changes. Significant ones." "What changes?" "That's the problem. The amended version was never filed with the court. It exists, But it wasn't part of the official estate distribution. Someone removed it from the primary packet. The diner suddenly felt very quiet. Who would do that? Adrian met my eyes. Someone who benefited from the original version remaining in effect. Adrian spread papers across the sticky diner table. Draft wills, meeting notes, hospital records. The timeline emerged like a crime scene reconstruction. March 14th. Original will signed. Dad still healthy, optimistic about treatment. March 28th. Dad called Adrian, requested immediate meeting. Notes indicated major revisions needed. April 2nd. Amended will drafted, reviewed, signed. Witnessed by 2 hospital staff members Dad trusted. April 7th. Amendment formally notarized and sealed. April 30th. Dad's condition worsened suddenly. May 12th. Dad passed away. June 4th. Original will read. Amendment never mentioned. Your father was completely lucid when he made those changes, Adrian said. I documented it specifically because I knew questions might arise. He knew exactly what he was doing. So where's the amended version? That's what I've been trying to find out. It should have been filed with the court automatically. But when I requested all documents 3 days ago, it wasn't in the packet. Someone removed it before distribution. Can they do that? No. It's illegal. He paused. Which means someone committed fraud. The word hung between us. Who had access? Adrian looked away. Lucinda was listed as a contact. She may have seen the filing before I submitted it. Lucinda claimed your father was confused those last weeks, Adrian continued. She said the medications affected his judgment, that he didn't understand what he was signing. She suggested we honor his true wishes from when he was healthier. I felt rage rising, hot and sharp. He was lucid. You just said so. I know. But she was convincing. She had doctors' reports about medication side effects, testimony from nurses about his declining state. She made it sound irresponsible to honor last-minute changes. So you just believed her. I didn't just believe her, Adrian said carefully. I followed protocol. I checked his medical records. They showed cognitive decline, confusion, memory issues. But those records were submitted by Lucinda's personal physician, not the hospital where your father actually received treatment. When I pulled the hospital records yesterday, they tell a completely different story. He showed me pages covered in medical terminology I barely understood. But the summary was clear. Samuel Cunningham remained mentally competent until his final days. Declined steadily physically, but his mind stayed sharp. Someone falsified medical records, I whispered, or selectively presented ones that supported their narrative. Adrian pulled out another document, hands trembling slightly. I found this yesterday. Filed with hospital security, never sent to me. Your father's handwriting. The note was dated April 6th, 1 day before the amendment was notarized. Dad's handwriting, shaky but unmistakable. Adrian, make sure Maribel sees this. She'll understand why I had to protect things this way. Lucinda can't be trusted with the full truth. I've made arrangements. Em needs to know she was never forgotten. Samuel. I traced the words with my finger, tears blurring my vision. This is definitely his writing. Asked though I knew. Absolutely. I'd recognize it anywhere. And there's more. Adrian showed me the phrasing in the amendment. Dad's specific voice came through every line. His way of structuring sentences, his particular concerns, even his small joke about hoping the lawyers wouldn't charge too much to read it. He wasn't confused, I said. He knew exactly what he was doing. Yes. And what he was doing was changing one major distribution. Which one? Adrian pulled out the final page. The house. The one Owen's currently renovating. Your father placed it into an irrevocable trust with specific conditions. What kind of conditions? You are named as the trustee. Owen receives limited lifetime use, but cannot sell, mortgage, or transfer ownership. Upon his death or if he violates terms, full ownership transfers to you and any children you may have. My mind spun. Owen's been taking out loans. I know. I saw the post. Which means he's in violation. The implications crashed over me like a wave. The house was worth at least $800,000. Owen had been posting about his inheritance, treating it like property he owned outright. How much has he borrowed against it? Yes. Adrian pulled out loan documents. So far, $300,000. 2 home equity loans and a line of credit. That's illegal if he doesn't actually own it. Correct. He committed fraud the moment he claimed ownership to secure those loans. And Lucinda co-signed on 2 of them, which means she's equally liable. Does Owen know about the trust? That's the question I keep asking myself. Either Lucinda never told him, or they're both in on it. I stared at the documents, my father's careful handwriting protecting me even after death. He'd known Lucinda would try something. He'd prepared for it. Why a trust instead of just leaving it to me directly? Because a direct inheritance could be contested as a last-minute change made under duress. A trust, especially one set up with clear reasoning and legal witnesses, is much harder to challenge. Your father was protecting you from a legal battle. But they hid the amendment anyway. They did. Which means they knew about it and actively worked to suppress it. I took a deep breath. What do I do now? Adrian's expression turned carefully neutral. That's your choice. But I'd suggest moving quickly before Owen borrows more. I made a decision that surprised even me. I said nothing. Not to Lucinda, not to Owen, not even to friends asking how I was doing. I went back to my quiet life, working my normal job, posting normal things on social media. And I watched. Owen posted about the new pool he was planning. Lucinda shared photos from wine tastings in Napa Valley. They spent and spent and spent, each purchase adding to their liability. Adrian called once a week with updates. More loans. More renovations. More evidence. You're playing a dangerous game, he warned. Every day we wait is another day they could hide assets or transfer things. I know. Just a little longer. Because here's what I understood that they didn't. The more confident they became, the more careless they'd be. And I needed them careless. 2 weeks later Lucinda called. First time since June. Maribel, darling, I'm planning a small dinner party next weekend. Just family. I thought it might be nice to reconnect. What's the occasion? Oh, just celebrating life, you know? Owen's doing so well with his developments. The house is finally feeling like home. Your father would have been so pleased. She wanted me to see their success. To rub it in. I'll be there, I said. The dinner was everything I expected. Expensive wine, catered food. The house transformed by Owen's renovations. Every surface screamed money, Dad's money, spent without guilt. Lucinda held court at the head of the table, telling stories about Dad that weren't quite true, smoothing rough edges, making herself the devoted wife who'd sacrificed everything. Samuel was so difficult those last months, she sighed dramatically. The medication made him paranoid. He accused me of the strangest things. Like what? Asked Inically. Oh, just confused ramblings. Thought I was trying to steal from him, can you imagine? His own wife. The doctor said it was normal with his condition, but it was heartbreaking. Owen jumped in. Mom handled it amazingly. I don't know how she stayed so patient. You do what you must for love, Lucinda said. I smiled and sipped my wine, letting them talk. Then Owen made a mistake. The amendment was the hardest part, he said casually, reaching for more bread. Trying to figure out what he actually wanted versus what the medication made him think he wanted. I went very still. What amendment? Owen froze. Lucinda's face went white. I meant the original will. Just the confusion about distributions. No, you said amendment. Lucinda recovered fast. Owen's confused. There was only one will, the proper one from March. Everything else was just medication-induced rambling. But I'd seen it. That flash of panic. They knew. I left the dinner early, claiming a headache. That night I called Adrian. They know about the amendment, I said. Owen slipped. They've seen it. That means Lucinda definitely removed it from the filing. She had to have accessed my office documents. Can you prove that? Maybe. Let me check something. He called back an hour later, voice tight with controlled anger. I have proof. 3 separate emails from Lucinda's account to my assistant, requesting copies of estate documents, for her records. She specifically asked for all drafts and amendments. My assistant sent them, thinking it was a normal request from the spouse. When? April 15th, 3 days after your father passed. Before I'd even begun the formal filing process. So she knew immediately what he'd changed. And she had time to plan. One of the emails specifically instructs my assistant to delay informing Maribel until after primary distributions are finalized. She claimed it was to avoid upsetting you during grief. The words felt like ice. She erased me on purpose. Yes, this wasn't an oversight or a mistake. It was calculated, deliberate fraud. I sat in my car outside my apartment, staring at nothing. What happens now? That's up to you. We can proceed quietly through legal channels, or we can file formal charges of fraud and forgery. One protects privacy. The other makes it very public. I thought about Dad, about how he'd tried to protect me even while dying. About Lucinda's performance tonight, rewriting history without shame. I want it quiet, I said finally. But I want everything back. Adrian filed the paperwork on a Tuesday morning. No warning, no dramatic confrontation. Just legal documents submitted to probate court, requesting formal review of the estate distribution and inclusion of the suppressed amendment. Included in our filing, the original amended will, the hospital security note, medical records proving Dad's competency, email evidence of Lucinda's access to documents, and a timeline showing deliberate suppression. The documents were served via certified mail. Lucinda would receive hers at home. Owen at his office. Both would open their mail expecting bills or junk. Instead, they'd find legal notices informing them that the estate was being reopened and their distributions potentially reversed. Adrian called that afternoon. Both deliveries confirmed. Lucinda signed for hers at 10:47 a.m. Owen at 11:23 a.m. And now we wait for them to panic. The first call came at 2:16 p.m. Lucinda, voice shaking with rage. How dare you? After everything we tried to do for you. This is betrayal, Maribel. Pure betrayal. Actually, it's called reclaiming what was stolen. Your father left you nothing because you deserved nothing. You were never there, never cared, never. He left me the house, Lucinda. In an amendment you hid. I have proof. Silence. Then. You can't prove anything. Adrian has your emails. Hospital records. The amendment with Dad's signature. We have everything. Over the next week, Lucinda's calls came in waves. Anger, then bargaining, then threats, then back to anger. I didn't answer any of them. Owen tried a different approach. He showed up at my apartment unannounced, looking disheveled. We can fix this, he said at my door. We can work something out. You don't need the whole house. We'll give you a percentage. I don't want a percentage. I want what Dad intended me to have. Mom didn't mean for this to happen. She was confused, grieving. She made a mistake. Your mother committed fraud, Owen. She knew exactly what she was doing. His face hardened. If you push this, we'll fight you in court. Drag this out for years. Cost you everything in legal fees. Go ahead. Adrian's working pro bono. And every month you fight is another month you're in violation of the trust terms. What trust? I smiled, finally understanding. Lucinda never told you, did she? About the terms of Dad's amendment. Owen's confusion was genuine. He really didn't know. The house isn't yours, Owen. Never was. Dad put it in an irrevocable trust with me as trustee. You have limited use rights, but you can't sell it, mortgage it, or borrow against it. His face went gray. The loans. Exactly. You've committed loan fraud. And Mom co-signed, which makes her equally liable. The explosion happened the next day. I wasn't there, but Adrian heard about it from his assistant who heard from the court clerk. Owen confronted Lucinda in the courthouse parking lot, screaming accusations, threats. She'd never told him about the trust restrictions. She'd let him take out loans, co-sign them even, knowing full well they were illegal. You set me up, Owen yelled. You knew I couldn't borrow against it and you let me anyway. I was protecting us, Lucinda shot back. If we'd followed that ridiculous amendment, we'd have lost everything. So you thought hiding it was better. Now I'm facing fraud charges. You're facing them because Maribel is vindictive and ungrateful. No, I'm facing them because you lied to me. You told me the house was mine outright. You said there were no conditions. Their united front, so carefully maintained for months, crumbled in a courthouse parking lot over money and lies. The court clerk who witnessed it told Adrian's assistant it was better than daytime television. Adrian called me that evening. They're turning on each other. Lucinda's lawyer contacted mine today. She's willing to negotiate. Negotiate what? She'll accept the trust terms and return improper distributions if we agree not to pursue criminal charges. What about Owen? Owen's hired his own lawyer. He's arguing he was deceived by Lucinda and shouldn't be held responsible. They're destroying each other. Yes, which puts us in a very strong position. The formal hearing was scheduled for October 23rd. I wore the same black dress from the original will reading, a deliberate choice. Lucinda arrived with an expensive lawyer who looked uncomfortable. Owen came separately with a younger attorney who kept checking his phone. They sat on opposite sides of the courtroom, not speaking. The judge, a gray-haired woman with sharp eyes, reviewed the documents Adrian had filed. She took her time reading every page. This is quite troubling, she finally said. Ms. Rivera, you're alleged to have removed critical documents from the estate filing. What's your response? Lucinda's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client was grieving and confused. The timeline of her husband's final weeks was chaotic. She may have inadvertently overlooked the amendment in the paperwork. Inadvertently. The judge held up the email printouts. These communications specifically reference the amendment and request its exclusion from primary distribution. Those emails were taken out of context. They're time-stamped and explicit. Ms. Rivera wrote, and I quote, "Delay informing Maribel until after primary distributions are finalized." How is that out of context? Lucinda's lawyer had no answer. The judge turned to Owen. Mr. Cunningham, you took out substantial loans against property you didn't own. Were you aware of the trust restrictions? Owen's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client was deliberately misled by his mother regarding ownership status. You're claiming you didn't know. I trusted my mother's representation of the estate distribution. The judge wasn't buying it. Mr. Cunningham, you attended the will reading. You heard the attorney explain distributions. At no point did you question ownership details before borrowing $300,000. Owen shifted in his seat. I assumed everything was clear. Assuming is dangerous when dealing with estates of this size. She turned back to Lucinda. Ms. Rivera, the evidence suggests deliberate fraud. You accessed confidential legal documents, removed material information, and allowed your son to commit loan fraud while co-signing the loans yourself. Do you dispute this? Lucinda's composure finally cracked. I did what I had to do. Samuel was going to give everything to her. After all I'd done, all the years I'd spent taking care of him, he was going to leave me with nothing. So you took matters into your own hands. I took what should have been mine in the first place. The courtroom went silent. Even her lawyer looked shocked. The judge made notes. Mr. Wells, you indicated there's additional evidence. Adrian stood. Yes, Your Honor. We have a recorded statement from Samuel Cunningham, made 2 weeks before his death. He left it with hospital security, to be released only if his wishes were challenged. I'll allow it. Adrian pressed play. Dad's voice filled the courtroom, weak but clear. My name is Samuel Cunningham. Today is April 21st. I'm making this recording because I'm worried about what might happen after I'm gone. I gripped the table edge, hearing him again. I've made significant changes to my estate planning. Changes my wife won't like. I'm placing my primary residence into a trust for my daughter Maribel, with specific terms that protect her interests. Lucinda's face had gone white. I'm doing this because I've learned things about Lucinda's financial management that concern me deeply. She's made unauthorized purchases, opened credit cards in my name, and hidden debts I'm still discovering. I can't trust her with unrestricted access to assets. Owen was staring at his mother now, confusion and dawning horror on his face. Maribel doesn't know any of this. She spent my last year taking care of me while others were positioning themselves for inheritances. She asked for nothing. She just showed up, held my hand, and loved me without condition. My eyes blurred with tears. If this recording is being played, it means someone challenged my wishes. It means Lucinda probably tried to hide the amendment. I'm making this statement while fully lucid, witnessed by Dr. Patel and Nurse Gorham, to confirm my mental competency and the validity of my decisions. Maribel Butterfly, if you're hearing this, you were never forgotten. You were protected. Trust Adrian. He has everything you need. The recording ended. The silence felt sacred. The judge removed her glasses, cleaning them slowly while the weight of Dad's words settled over everyone. Ms. Rivera, she said finally. Do you have anything to say? Lucinda sat frozen, her expensive composure shattered. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible. I loved him. I'm sure you did. But love doesn't justify fraud. He was going to leave me with nothing. That's not accurate, Adrian interjected. The amended will still left Ms. Rivera with substantial assets. The investment portfolio worth $400,000, the life insurance proceeds, and full ownership of Mr. Cunningham's business interests. She was not disinherited. But the house was never yours to take, the judge finished. Mr. Cunningham made his wishes explicitly clear. You chose to ignore them. She turned to Owen. Mr. Cunningham, you're in a difficult position. The loans you secured were fraudulent, whether you knew it or not. The lenders will need to be notified. Owen looked sick. What happens to me? That depends on whether Ms. Maribel Cunningham chooses to pursue charges. The property is technically hers to control. Everyone turned to look at me. The judge's question hung in the air. Ms. Cunningham, how do you wish to proceed? I stood slowly, feeling the weight of Dad's recording still echoing in my chest. I want control of the trust, as my father intended. I want the house transferred properly and all fraudulent loans addressed. That's reasonable, the judge said. But I don't want criminal charges against Owen. Lucinda's head snapped up. Owen looked stunned. He was lied to, I continued. Manipulated by someone he trusted. Pursuing charges would only hurt him more, and that's not what Dad would have wanted. And Ms. Rivera? The judge asked. I looked at Lucinda, seeing her clearly for the first time. Not as the villain of my story, but as someone who'd let fear and greed destroy her integrity. I want her removed as executor. I want control over distributions she's already received, to ensure they align with Dad's actual wishes. But beyond that, paused, choosing my words carefully. Beyond that, I just want closure. I want the record corrected. I want my father's real wishes honored and his memory preserved accurately. The judge nodded approvingly. That's remarkably restrained, Ms. Cunningham. My father taught me that revenge isn't the same as justice. Justice is about making things right, not making others hurt. Lucinda's eyes filled with tears, but she looked away. The judge made her ruling. Estate reopened, amendment incorporated, distributions recalculated. Lucinda removed as executor, replaced by Adrian. Owen's loans declared fraudulent but charges waived upon property return. The gavel fell and it was over. Owen approached me in the hallway afterward, his face haggard. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for not destroying me. I didn't do it for you. I did it because Dad would have wanted family protected, even flawed family. She lied about everything." His voice broke slightly. "The trust, the loans, what Dad wanted. I believed her. I know. I'm sorry, Maribel. For all of it. The will reading, the dinner, acting like you didn't matter. I was wrong." I nodded, accepting it without absolving him. Some apologies just have to exist in the space between people. Lucinda left without speaking to either of us. Her lawyer said she'd comply with all court orders and wouldn't appeal. She looked smaller somehow, diminished by her own choices. Adrian walked me to my car. "You could have taken everything," he said. "The court would have supported it. I didn't want everything. I wanted what was mine and the truth told. Your father would be proud." I think he already was. That's what that recording was. Proof he always saw me, even when others didn't. We stood there in the courthouse parking lot where Owen and Lucinda had torn each other apart weeks earlier. The autumn air was crisp, carrying the promise of winter. "What now?" Adrian asked. "Now I figure out what to do with a house I never expected to own." The house transfer took 6 weeks to finalize. Legal documents, loan settlements, title changes. Owen moved out quietly, taking only personal belongings. Lucinda's belongings disappeared one weekend while I was at work. I walked through the empty rooms, seeing them clearly for the first time. Not as Lucinda's showcase or Owen's inheritance, but as Dad's home. Home. The living room where we'd watched movies together. The kitchen where he'd taught me to make his grandmother's sauce recipe. The back porch where we'd sit in silence, just being together. I found things they'd missed in their rush to spend and renovate. Photo albums in the attic. Dad's journals in a basement box. Letters he'd written but never sent, working through his thoughts about Lucinda, about Owen, about me. One letter was dated a week before he made the trust amendment. "Maribel doesn't ask for anything, which makes me want to give her everything. She shows up not because she expects something in return but because she loves me. That's rare. That's worth protecting." I sat on the floor of his office, surrounded by evidence of how much he'd loved me, and finally let myself grieve properly. Not just his death, but the months of thinking I'd been forgotten. The house didn't feel like a victory. It felt like a responsibility, a trust in both legal and emotional sense. Dad had protected it for me, and now I needed to decide what to do with that protection. I could sell it, take the money, start fresh somewhere else. Or I could stay, make it mine, turn it into the home Dad had always wanted it to be. 3 months after the final ruling, Adrian called to check in. "How are you settling in?" he asked. "Good. Strange but good. I'm turning Dad's office into a library." He would have liked that. He would have. And the estate. Everything clear. Finally, yes. Lucinda's distributions were recalculated. Owen's working with the banks to settle the loans. "It's messy, but it's being handled." "You could have made it messier," Adrian said. "You showed remarkable restraint." I showed what Dad taught me. That being right matters more than being cruel. We talked for a while longer about nothing important. Normal conversation between people who'd been through something extraordinary together. After hanging up, I walked through my house, and thought about the journey from that conference. Room in June to this moment. They'd called it an accident, an oversight, a simple mistake in complex paperwork. But Dad had made sure I'd be the only one who couldn't be erased. He'd built protections I hadn't known I needed, left messages I'd discover when the time was right, and trusted that eventually truth would surface. The house was mine. The record was corrected. The lies were exposed. But more than any of that, I had proof of something that mattered more than money. My father had seen me, valued me, and loved me enough to protect me even after death. They tried to write me out of the story. Dad made sure I'd be the one telling it.